Hydrahedron Runemaster. It's a fast mage build I consider to be a top option for this class. We're going to get things started with a fully unedited Corruption 1000 run, starting first with the Timeline boss and Harbinger. For this build, Ward is a big part of our damage, and before any boss fight, usually we're there spamming Frostwall and Flame Ward to try to stack up as much as possible. It's always important to be moving and let the Hydras do most of the work for you, as standing still for even a small amount of time can get you killed. The basics of this build remain the same. You cast Flame Rush to move around, dropping Hydra wherever you land, and if you pass through your Frost Wall on the way, the Hydra does even more damage. Typically you would spam a free spell, either Fireball or Rudebolt, to generate mana and damage amplifiers, then drop down a Frost Wall and Flame Dash through it. I've adjusted this playstyle to instead cast a lot of Frost Walls to generate stacks of Runic Energy. These allow you to have 2 Hydras get cast instead of 1, as well as causing them both to deal a lot more damage. Arcane Battery gives us Runic stacks per mana spent, and Frost Wall costs a lot of mana, but also has the big benefit of refunding most of it. This interaction allows us to build up a ton of stacks before the next Hydra without going out of mana. My general strategy will be to cast Flame Dash on cooldown through a Frost Wall, and cast as many Frost Walls and Rune Bolts as I can between these cooldowns to be moving at maximum speed towards my next objective. Also as needed, I'll cast a Flame Ward to help maintain my high ward total. And with that, I'm now going to leave you with the rest of my unedited Corruption 1000 run. I'll come back a little before the final bosses, and there will be a gear, passive, and skill portion at the end. And I'm back. To those of you who watched the whole run up to this point, I applaud you. This next echo is going to be the Sacrificial Altar. This one's giving me a few deaths and much lower corruption levels in the past, and I have to be careful in it to never let a boss get a big attack off on me. Our goals here are going to be the same. We strive to be constantly on the move, dropping down frost walls and dashing through them. I didn't really intend to do this echo, it just happened to be the one that spawned right before the final boss. Any one of these guys in here could easily 1 or 2 shot me, so I need to continue being very careful. Cooldown recovery speed is extremely important for this build. Getting Flame Dash's 3.5 second cooldown down to 2 seconds or less makes it feel a lot better to play, and it matters a ton for quick movement fights like this one. With this low cooldown Flame Rush, be sure to aim them at the enemy to charge through them for some bonus shred. Whenever possible and when it's safe, try to charge through your opponent. Coming up here is a great example of this against Spymaster Zarek, this zone's final boss. Pay attention to how every time I do cast Flame Rush to drop a Hydra, I'm aiming it so that the path will go through my enemy. And with that, we're done with echoes, and all that's left to do now is fight the Shade of Orobyss. This fight will showcase most of the concepts we've gone over up to this point with the build. We're generating ward before the fight with Frostwall and Flame Ward. We're going to be constantly staying mobile, moving about, and dashing often and through our opponent, the Shade, when possible. That's going to conclude the gameplay portion of this guide, and now I'll be getting into the skills, gear, and passives. We're going to cover some of the skills first, and I'm not going to go into detail over every single point and every single skill and passive. Instead, I'm going to highlight what I think are the most important ones. Starting off here with Rune Bolt, this is going to be spammable for armor shred. Also, it's an option to have it generate crit via Rune Weave for our Hydra if you're lacking crit. It can also be used to generate mana for you with Arcane Restoration, and can be a good source of haste here with Arcanist. Next up's Flame Rush. We've already seen how it does penetration with Smolder and Burn. This probably should be the last thing you max out in the tree. Epilogue here is mandatory for the build to function, allowing you to even cast Hydra. Fiery Overload gives Frenzy afterwards for 2 seconds, increasing cast speed. And next we have Damage Reduction with Runic Eclipse, and finally Blazing Flux for some cooldown recovery speed. One thing to note here is if you're able to get over 150% fire resist, it can be a nice source of extra cooldown reduction for Flame Rush. Runic Invocation's up next, and we've already seen Arcane Battery, allowing us to spend mana for extra stacks to get double Hydras. The only other thing of note is Word of Rhea should be the last thing you get, as it's too large a point investment for not enough gain. Flame Ward's up next. We have it auto-cast whenever we're stunned, and then we have it gaining a second charge so we can be a bit more flexible with how we cast it. Notably here, I deviate a bit from the standard Flame Ward build, dropping some points in damage reduction and elemental damage reduction in favor of some ward per second and ward retention. Our last skill is Frostwall. We've already seen Howling Rift allowing us to move the frost walls around while still maintaining some duration, as well as giving us a lot of mana back. Next, we're going to look at increasing the area and duration of Frostwall, as well as having them give us some mana and ward back when we pass through them. This includes when we cast it on ourselves. Next is a very key part of the build, Aspirant's Arrival. It gives us a lot of more damage each second the wall's been up for our next Hydra after passing through it. And finally, we'll be gaining up to 200 ward whenever a frost wall hits an enemy. The last thing I want to talk about with skills is Immutable Order. This is what always gives us the correct runes in the correct order and locks them in place. It's important to have a lightning skill and then 2 fire skills as the first 3 on our action bar. To achieve this, we get the lightning tag on Flame Ward with Lightning Ward, and then we put that as the first skill on our hotbar. And then we get the fire tag on Frostwall with Pyroglass, and then put that in our second slot. And then our third skill is Flame Rush, so left to right we have Lightning, Fire, Fire. Even if we cast 3 Rune Bolts or any other skill, this will always give us the exact 3 runes we need. Now let's get into the passives. I really wouldn't change much with the Mage or Spellblade tree. With the Sorcerer tree, I threw a few extra points into Calculated Destruction just for the 3 int, but these are optional and could be spent on Mana Shell for some useful word per second. You'd want 5 points in Mana Shell, so you'd have to find 2 points somewhere else. Over in the Runemaster tree, I took a lot of points out of Spirit Protection. These are pretty flexible, and they give damage reduction and health based on your needs. I also put 2 extra points here into Ancient Inscriptions just for the 2 int. If you need 5 extra points somewhere, you could take some out of Runeword Cataclysm. It's not a bad choice. This is assuming you can afford to drop the crit chance and you're still at crit cap. It's only giving you 15% more damage versus low life, and these 5 points could be real useful. The last thing I want to talk about now is Nimbus Walk, giving 200 ward per cast of Flame Rush, 100 for Flame Rush, and 100 for Hydra. We make our Hydrahedron a traversal skill in the skill tree with Enigma, allowing our Flame Rush cast to generate 200 ward. Now let's go over the gear. Starting with some of the optional pieces for the build, I've listed stats in the top left of the screen, with the top being more important than the bottom ones. The only exception to this is the helm, where ideally I would have wanted to have gotten the mage only stat, Fire Pen and Armor with Fire Invocations. A good exalted item in any of these slots with the stats listed are fine options instead of some of these legendaries. Cooldown recovery speed is very important on belt and boots, and in general, we're shooting for a good mix of all these stats. Most notably, dodge, armor, and ward we're trying to keep equal at all times. Now we're going to move into the mandatory legendaries for the build, with the 2 most important being Staff and Chest. The Staff is what allows us to scale off armor, dodge, and ward. The Chest is what allows us to scale off of attunement stacking. The boots provide a significant bonus to dodge while channeling, and this works with our Hydrahedron cast right after channeling. And then the Relic is providing a ton of bonuses to Hydrahedron that are useful. Pulling up the stat page here, I'll get into the philosophy behind idols. Idols are used to fill in the gaps in your gear. If you end up needing a ton of dodge, you can easily make that up with a few idols. These new Weaver idols this patch are extremely strong in the stats they modify. If you're missing a lot of a resist or two, you can also make that up. Otherwise, just stack equal amounts of armor, dodge, and ward to scale damage and survival. One idol that is very important is the Mage 2x2 idol. I use this idol for nearly everything, but not for the ward on cast or damage it provides, mostly for the haste on evade. This idol at tier 7 provides almost 4 seconds of haste whenever you evade, giving you nearly a 100% haste uptime. Here's an example of me running around with it, just gaining haste. The idol I use for Abberoth, and pretty much Abberoth only, is the Throne of Ambition. This provides a massive armor buff, and I account for the 40% more armor being active when I redo my idols and my stats. Here's a quick look at the stat categories of the build. I'll just scroll through them all now. When calculating dodge and armor, it's important to cast a few spells to get your raw runes up if you have the affix on your helm or chest giving bonus armor. Also, remember to channel to see your dodge while channeling shoot up on the stat sheet. Try to look at the updated values with these things to see what stats you need from idols or gear to balance it all out. Now let's quickly look at the blessings I use. No surprise, you'll see I'm stacking more armor and dodge wherever possible. Then we're going to have some ward per second and some crit multi. That's going to do it now for this guide. I hope you enjoyed it. Consider leaving a like and a subscribe if you did. If you have any questions, I'll answer them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.